mentioned that some people
Buddhism is a minimalist.
usually take 20 minutes or so, but not a full hour. That to some extent. And they don't come in with something to put up on the screen, or even something in my hand, or any kind of anything to which I depend on the cortex, being able to give me through short-term memory or memory processes, depending on what you say in a sense. But what I will have to say, I want us all to think of it as a conversation, and at whatever turn, whenever somebody might have a question about what I'll be talking, please just raise your hand and we'll do this. Now, I'm a school teacher and a kind of counselor, not so much an academic. And so I have grown up with Dabrowski in a situation where through interaction and conversation and so on, what I know about Dabrowski and other things, psychological, that's how we express them and communicate them. And so I'm going to kind of look at it like this. And it's a little bit of a break from what some of the other things possibly. But I want to start with being still. Now, we just learned about it, and her cohort showed us that to be calm when starting any endeavor, intellectual endeavor, this is very useful. And so we can be much more alert following being calm. And in fact, in my classes where I teach, I begin every class, every session of the class with this kind of getting still procedure, a kind of mindfulness exercise. And so that's what I'd like to ask us to do right now. This getting still has to do with first bodily, get yourself where you're not going to want to move, like, get where you can keep your body still for a few minutes, and then, and so no, I'm not looking for like conscious of still body, not something moving like that. And now, put awareness on your breathing, and try to keep your awareness with your breathing here for a few minutes, not so long. Do it now. Even as I'm speaking, my voice is kind of in the background. Let be in the foreground of breathing. Feel your breathing. Stay with your breathing, awareness-wise. Put your awareness on breathing. Keep it there. You can close your eyes or not. It doesn't matter. Just keep your awareness on breathing. If you get distracted, some thought comes or some sensation, or something, just come back to breathing. Stay with breathing for a while. It's here and now. Okay. And go on from there. So here we go, please. Just this interesting relationship to our experience when I put our awareness in one place and everything else happens. We can witness the other stuff that's going on. We can notice thoughts that come to mind and so on, but we stand in a different relation to the mental process. We can come to get there. Most of us are just occupied with the mind, whatever the mind does, discursive thinking, that's what we go on so on. And to a certain extent, the ability to be aware of but not be sucked in, so to speak, by this part of the mind is very useful. And so in this meditation, which I guess, Dabrowski himself, he meditated. He once showed me a form of meditation that he used, and he even proposed to certain the people he counseled that were going through spontaneous multi-level disintegration, kind of level 3, level 2, level 3, and especially level 3 meditation as a means to work with the dynamisms of positive disintegration. And to me, interestingly, like in 1972, when I had been working for Dabrowski for a little bit, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi came to Edmonton. And then he had this, and so the university put together a few people to go and sit down and have a panel with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, one of them was Dabrowski. And so one of them was Herman Tennyson, and a couple others. These were two of the people there that were my teachers, but there were a couple others. And so we sat down with Maharishi, and some of them learned the meditation. And the meditation that he taught is kind of a mantra meditation. And then later on that same year, there were people there, not Maharishi himself, but others teaching us. Dexter goes down, he learns this meditation in 72, and so on. And Dabrowski knew all about this meditation. And in some ways, he didn't think that certain kinds of meditation were useful to development because it could dampen and quiet down this important, invigorating inner developmental process. And so, in some extent, he didn't agree with what Maharishi was saying. Not just quiet down, everything's cool, and settle down like this, and restful, relaxed, and everything else. There's very important inner mental, emotional stuff going on in us. And this is our development. And we need that. And we need to work through that. We don't want, it's like something, like a drug or something, the meditation itself, to take away the poignancy and the important energy in our inner experience. But with people who are, especially in spontaneous disintegration, all these dynamism, all this stuff going on, before directed, before some organization, this can kind of help and kind of free a person up from the whole thing and give them some relationship, some kind of connection and so on. And this is sort of, in a way, from that fourth, the level 4 can arise and third factor can start to rise, because what is happening is that the person is becoming free from the mind that makes them depressed, that makes them anxious, that makes us this, that, and the other thing, and have more relation with it. Can use the mind, can use the potential that the mind has to examine particularly what's going on inside. And this is the main thing. And so this is the development of third factor in the higher growth through positive disintegration, as it relates in a way here to this getting still, or this meditation process. But as I don't remember what it says something like, I'm going to be talking about Dabrowski creativity in Dabrowski and in his theory. And of course, his whole theory is a gigantic creation of his, stemming from his own creative experience. And what am I reaching down here for? What reason? I think I was going to do this. So, Sal's excellent book includes a chapter on creativity. And much of what I want to share here in terms of what is coming from Dabrowski's life, what is present in his theory around creativity. You know, it's in here, a lot of it, but I'm going to take a couple of aspects of it and say a little bit more about it here. And I mean that as you hear it, or whatever you think, please say something. You know, please, raise your hand or interject, or whatever it feels, good. It's okay. And so, let me talk a little bit about what I know about Dabrowski's creativity. First off, we've seen so much. It's already been said, everything that I would say. And all the things that we've already said, I don't think there's anything more to say there in a sense. I mean, it's beautiful. And we have really already a very full and complete layout of theory of positive disintegration as it exists in practice and exists in theory and so on. And this great new, especially in relation to creativity, Lori and Bill and others, is really, what else is there to say? But for me, in a certain sense, and I sat with Dabrowski for several years, working on these issues and working on the language, English language, expression of the things that he thought, for the most part, in Polish, but he knew Polish, he knew French, German, he knew Russian, he knew other languages. English was not his best language, but he certainly understood well enough to communicate it, and he would lay it out, and then we would try to help work it and meet with him. And I think of, now that I'm talking about this, like when Dabrowski was at home, or what we call home, he had several homes. He was working in Edmonton and Laval, and sometimes he would go to Lima, sometimes he'd go to Europe and elsewhere to Poland sometimes. And like when he came back, and when he was gone, good, not the pressure's off, kind of, because he was really at work with what his explanation of humanity. And like Sal was saying, his theory addresses, it's not an attempt, it addresses every aspect of human experience, from this to that. I mean, the whole thing. And it doesn't all cram into these levels or stages, and they're not stages like Piaget, thank goodness. There is a different meaning, but there are levels. And you can look at, and this is Dabrowski's belief, but his experience, that you can see, and we can see in people, if it's within your own experience, and you've grown with this, what you have inside, you can see more or less outside. You can see it in others, like we were talking about mothers who can tell their children, can see in their children, and see the differences in their children, and experience the connection and knowledge of their children in ways that aren't fully explained by language. Now, this one of the places where I'm going to shift right now, because Sal's sitting up there, and he talked about this sort of movement from self-concept to what then Dabrowski starts calling self-awareness. Not self-concept, not the mind's chatter, the mind's reflection, was picked up by parents and other adults, and you this, you that, and the person comes up with this concept of self, maybe negative concept of self, maybe a not negative concept of self. Now this is concept of self, which is the mind's take, which is the way it looks like from outside. It's reflected. It's not coming from in here. And see, when Dabrowski's talking about it, I know there's talk being given, and we heard it here in Yannicka too, the difference from going from outside in to kind of going from inside out. And so this is a very interesting transformation that's going on in this process of disintegration. It's something like a person sort of, in a way, controlled by, stuck by second factor, first factor, what you're born with, what the social and environmental is doing, how it impacts you, you're growing up young, and so on. But as I was listening to what Sal was saying there, and this is kind of socialization or social learning and so on, you can picture, you can photograph, you can video the gait of a mom, 30-year-old mom, and put it up on the screen and video the gait of her 33-year-old daughter. Now, you could computer analyze it, and you got pretty, she's walking just like her mom already by about 3. Now, the thing is, she's not just walking like her mom, emotionally. And she's not just, making her responses like her mom. She, through processes that I'm going to speak to a little bit by talking about Bergson's intuition. It's kind of a cruder way to look at it, but it's an interesting thing. That mom is in touch with her child, not by looking at her purely and observing the stuff that's going on outside. That's how she would explain it to somebody else. Even that's what she might do to explain it to herself, using words to explain it. But that's not what's happening. And in a huge thing that's very important for this whole endeavor, whether it's education, counseling, parenting, relating. I kept thinking of whisper, like dog whisper. We're talking about being able to pick up on what where the other person's at beyond the typical communication that language permits and so on. And see, like we're after, people whispering. The thing is, we are doing it, but it's kind of overrun by conceptual talk kinds of mental whatnot. And see, when we get still, for example, and I'm sitting here looking at my teacher and very good friend, Lama Alexi Zompo, in our audience here, and he and I teach together at the Spokane Falls Community College, and we're teaching the Psychology of Peace course. And there, we're teaching meditation as the main form of mindfulness. The whole peace course has to do with being mindful. The reason why we're not peaceful, we don't notice what's happening and we don't make proper moves. And we heard this, like making good moves. Like in our class, we say something like, we're here trying to understand ourselves and others better so we can make better moves. Now, yes, fully understanding ourselves and others better so we can make better moves. Now, what a person at level 2 or line 3 considers a better move is different than they will once they get into 3 level 3 and if they go into level 4 and so on. They're different moves, but for you, for each of us, as we understand ourselves to the fullest extent, and this has implication with what we just finished, how to get good teachers. What is a good teacher? What is a good parent? How does a good parent or teacher relate to their child or student in a way that maximizes their potential? And so, getting still, this meditative process, increasingly, incrementally, frees the person, the individual, the me, the I, the whatever, up from mental garbage. All kinds of thought, all kinds of thought from the past, impending on this, what are you going to say next, or something, and then what are you going to say next, all this stuff interferes with and can drive what you end up saying and thinking and seeing and everything else. Like, it's beautiful at the very end, being able to see perfectly, that very notion is so excellent, being able to see perfectly. And you can see perfection. Perfection is there to be seen. We're just being confused. We're messed up. We're kind of, other thoughts are going on in our mind, memories, upbringing, that brings certain memories, tendencies, response, emotional, whatever, that interferes with our ability to see perfection. And so, like, one way of talking about seeing perfection for Dabrowski was intuition. Like I kept looking at your list of good, in one place in the middle there was intuition, among many other interesting things. But when he said me intuition, now I'm going to shift to what my proposed topics is, within Dabrowski and creativity. Intuition was huge. He talked about it all the time. He talked about in his relation with his client. He talked about it in relation with us, in his teaching. And like, especially in relation to his clients, like he would say, like, it was the collaboration. He used the term collaboration for every kind of important relationship. It wasn't me, you, and this and that. It's like we, in everything, really. And this is what's so interesting about the theory. He comes up with a very thoroughgoing explanation of human whatnot. from this to that, and then somebody shows up with some issues, all he has to do is show them how these issues fit into this to that, and there they are. Now they can converse about it, he can share about it, he has lots of clinical experience, he has his own personal experience, and this too, huge. Dabrowski, incredible endowment, but when he lived, like March, Battaglia, and others, writing a more complete biography helps us appreciate his experience. It's huge. Now I'm going to come back to the intuition a little bit, but now when I say this, I see Dabrowski walking through dead bodies after a war, after a skirmish in the First World War, not the Second World War yet. All these bodies, he talked about it quite a bit in the past. And his own little sister, died in his early upbringing. And so it must be said, death is huge. Now, death is huge vis-a-vis life. And this, I think, is why he likes Unamuno. This is why he likes Bergson. Life, death, ebb, flow, integration, disintegration, like this kind of process, kind of way to characterize this growth process. And for Dabrowski, there's a life instinct that's going to be transformed, a preservation instinct that's going to be transformed through disintegration into a self-perfection instinct, but then there's a death instinct. And so like all of these dead bodies in the field or something are one expression of death instinct. It is an instinct to aggress against that which messing you up. It's kind of Freudian, and it must be admitted. He spent a lot of time trying to create a language that wasn't Freudian or behavioristic or some other way. He used the terms that they had very often, but then he changed them, like we know. Positive, all kinds of these positive things that people ordinarily would think, oh, that's not positive, you know what, you know. And so I want to see a little bit about what he called partial death instinct, because it's everywhere in there. Any inhibition at the neural level to the point of cognitive mental activity, of evaluation, discrimination, so on, anything that has inhibition in it, whether it starts off, you're not even noticing that it's happening, to the point where you start to notice it, maybe you take it over, or you modify it through your consciousness, your awareness, and so on. All inhibition, in a way, is at a minimal, at a micro level, partial death instinct having an impact on the growth process. And so it has huge, dramatic, suicidal kinds of consequences, or near suicidal consequences, or really big time breakdown consequences. But it has all kinds of other impacts in the process, in the progressive, incremental, disintegrated process. This partial death instinct is present, you know, and contributory in the long run. And you read the stuff, and I bring the books, like Bill's got it all online for all of us. You can get it. These are Dexter's books. They're all Dabrowski in the hard, you know, whatever, what do you call it? You know, the hard copy of, I see, what is this? See, I'm 72 right now. When I met Dabrowski in the first place, he was 70. And then he died 10 years later. And like, I think, I remember somebody saying something about how if someone came to his door, you know, and had some issue, wanted to talk to him or something, he'd put down dinner and go there. Or he could walk with the person. I know many times I walked home and talking. It's very excellent. Very, very excellent. Anyway, this is the way he was, and he is, you know. And I want to say something about Dabrowski also, in terms of overexcitabilities, and in terms of level of development and so on. Like I heard him say more than once, when he said, referred to his own level of development, he said 2 borderline 3. But I think I know what he was talking about. I'm not sure. And
And Dabrowski, you know, we're talking about psychomotor overexcitability or ADHD and stuff like this, and then we want to calm them down so they can use their cortex, but there's also give them something to do, and then they free up their cortex, you know. And so in Dabrowski, he picked his fingernails. He picked he had scabs on his head. He had psychomotor overexcitability. He had all the excitabilities. And of course, dramatic, you know, so imagination, amazing experience, you know, amazing altered state kind of experience. He didn't make this stuff up. Like, you know, I was talking to Norbert here a couple of, you know, yesterday or today, I can't remember, maybe this morning, and he says he wants to get permission to make more available. Of course, this is with Bill. These are 2 small volumes by, you know, Powell Chin. How do you mean that? How do you say that?
Chin.
Chin?
Chin means shadow.
Yes, shadow.
Yes.
Yes. So this is shadow. Yes, thank you. And so like here, fragments from the diary of a madman. Definitely. Everything. And this is like existential thoughts and aphorisms. Excellent. Now we have this theory in which the life of Dabrowski, as he experienced it, is laid out in a way that makes room for everybody. It makes room for everyone. But the formal part that shows up in the theory, we look at it as kind of really kind of, that's peculiar. Neurosis is good. Neurosis is developmental. It's important in your growth and so on. You know, right there's where a lot of people stop. This has got to be, this is just ridiculous. And that's where a lot of people do stop. Yes.
Those 2 books are holding you fast.
Yes, that's
you know,
correct.
You can read the theoretical books, and you get one sense of but those books are more.
Surely, and that's kind of the point. Thank you. And that is like, wow, he's harnessed and given discursive accounts and explanations in this interesting, massive theory. And it can be regarded as weird because he says neurosis is, you know, is good. He is way off the board. He is radical in the fullness of his experience and his attempt to creatively express it. Really. I also have in here like the play that Dabrowski wrote, which is very interesting. And there's creativity and everything in the whole thing. There is. Now, if you look at, we were talking about brain science and how the brain is so plastic, and so many things in the last 5-10 years have been discovered about the brain that makes it possible for Lexi and I to go into a class and speak to issues of, say, negative emotions as we experience them, but also know about what's happening in the brain. And also how to change what's happening in the brain by changing the way you're feeling, transforming your feelings to bring about brain change. Now, like 10 years ago, and even for some people today, it sounds like, I don't think so. It is true. It is true. And see, that's what we're doing. Like in our very course, we are teaching how, for example, how to be more compassionate, how to be more loving. You pick your mom or somebody for whom you have the experience of compassion, the experience of love, your best friend, somebody, you know, like that right now. Use this in relation to the person at the store, or somebody that's a kind of neutral figure, or somebody that you don't love that much. Use it. Maybe just like in biofeedback, when you can, you know, all you have to do is get some kind of feedback to let you know, like with treatment for headache, for migraines, they'll strap a thermometer to your finger and give you feedback about the temperature in your extremities. So like when that goes away, you know, when the temperature goes down in your, or comes up in your hand, that means you're moving the blood from the center, getting rid of your migraine, and bringing it out here. And you don't need to know the miraculous mechanism of the whole thing. All you need to have is the feedback. But you don't even need the feedback in a sense. You can train the brain. The same love you have for a mom, you can have that for somebody else. And you can make that happen, and your brain will do that, and then it will support it for you. And see, this is what's behind, in part, our peace courses teaching. It's not just anger management. It is kind of that part of it. But it is using other contemplative practices. That means using your ability to use your emotions. You have them there. They're going on. They're sort of elicited from you. It's like they're a reflex to start with. And then by your attention with them and using this becomes an operant. You can actually do this response and with the consequences that follow. And your brain has changed. And see, that's what we have now. We have a way to show, hey, their brain changed. They can actually change their brain. You know, not so long ago, not possible. Like that, you can't do it. So, okay. Yes, sir.
Could you say something more about the method of meditation he taught you?
The method of meditation that he taught me.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about it, but once that he showed me was where he laid down on the floor, like this, and he tightened up his whole body from here. Kind of like what they call that.
Autogenic.
What's that?
Autogenic training.
Autogenic training, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. He did, and I tried that, yes.
It's fairly well researched now in the psychotherapy literature that meditation does change the brain. So that's now fairly mainstream. So I'm wondering, because I don't know a lot about Dabrowski, so what's unique about him was he identified much earlier than what our current research would support the power of meditation changing the brain.
Absolutely.
Is that his?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah, excuse me. Yes. And see, like, I mean, not only I think was it natural to him, kind of meditative states, kind of states like he talks about psychic spasm, and other kinds of altered states that stop you in this process and gives you a take, subject-object, gives you a look at something. Like these dynamisms that we have that characterize and can be seen to describe everybody's experience, of course, he had those dynamisms. He's talking, he can nail them, explain them, just like they were. And so with these kinds of experiences, he has, and this is where Bergson, I want to say a little bit about Bergson. Bergson walks into something, I don't know if he practiced Buddhist meditation or any other kind of meditation, but he was in relation to his mind in such a way that it wasn't running his show. He was using his mind, and he could observe what was going on internally. That's what duration or durée was for Bergson. This is the ongoing life process, élan vital. This is the experience in the individual, the whole personality process going on inside him is this ongoing. You are in touch with yourself, even as you're listening now. You are in touch with yourself, so to speak. When you sit and be still and decide not to go where the mind's given that, it's more thoroughly yourself not interacted or messed with by this discursive mind. And every time you don't go where the mind would normally take you, as it's doing right now, every time you don't go there, you change your brain. It's a new response. And you come to the place where you're not at the mercy of the way you've been programmed, the way your parents brought you up, the way they treat you in this culture, the way this, that, or the other thing happens. You have freed yourself. This is like third factor. This is the development of own forces to be able to use your mind, use your emotions, use your process, your developmental process to grow further and so on. And as we see from with Dabrowski, like Linda was showing, I mean, empathy is huge in the whole thing. And empathy is not a sufficient word as it's understood. And like creativity, the definition, like I'm listening to Lori give what an ordinary definition of creativity is, and so did Bill and so on, because you should do that. This is an ordinary audience. These are things I don't do that. I mean, I don't know why, but to me, like Dabrowski says, creativity is seeking new realities. It's seeking new realities. That's what it is. And especially as it relates to your own growth and personality development. That's it. And so, and then if we look at brain science today, we realize from the time we walk out of here a different person. Your brain will have changed so much. Just sitting here, trying not to, doing whatever you're doing, you walk out of here, it's a whole nother brain. Seriously. It's kind of, no. Yeah, every neuron. What I mean is every neuron that had to, release its, transmitter substance and pack the other one down, by the time we get out of here, we're good. We're different. And this is creativity. And from a Bergsonian view, this is participating in this creative evolution. We're participating in it. But we also come to take control of it and make our own, work with it as it goes on in us. Yeah.
To me, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, and life does us too.
How's that?
And life does us too.
Yeah.
So we're trudging
Yes.
along in life, and
Yeah.
we're thinking, this is my life. And then people come into our life, and people leave our life. And we need to do that transition, and sometimes it's hard, and we still need to do it.
Yeah, I guess. Sure.
It seems like it's a very lonely endeavor on the one hand,
Yes.
and I'm wondering if Dabrowski talked about the power of bringing people with the developmental potential together. Was there power and a threshold of people together?
In some cases, he did that. He didn't do much group therapy. I don't think he ever did any group therapy. Did he? Johanna? Did he ever? No, individual. And it's an individual process. Personality development, personality achievement, person. That's why he's not messing with you. He never messed with anybody. He showed them sort of a map. He showed them, this is where you are with this. Like right now, you're in a spontaneous multi-level disintegration because this in part instigated by the leaving of this very close relationship. Now, if you work with this and move with it, then you will move into more and more level 4. More and more some control over all this. And use this, develop this. Like this feeling that you had for this person who was so important for you, that feeling can be used in your relationship with someone else. This is kind of, and this is auto-psychotherapy, this is, self-education, and that kind of thing. I mean, so he's not imposing anything on anyone. He is trying to give, it's almost like he's trying to give an accurate description to the point where in it you can see, you have your own explanation. Now, do you want to converse about it? Now it's a collaboration. And he said, people who are teachers, counselors, and important others in relationships must be intuitive. It must be intuitive. Intuitive means, like I could read in here, intuitive, there are lots of interesting definitions that he gave by intuition, but he said when you read a book, and then we talk about literature and art, and all the ways in a person's relationship with art, it informs them, and it doesn't just inform them, it nourishes their own seeking of their personality ideal. I mean, what is an icon after all? What is these religious pictures are painted while in a state, a spiritual state, and so that the other person can pick up on that condition, can be enlivened by it, can be motivated by it, and so on. And like literature, and like novels and the protagonists in novels, and identifying with the main character in a book, in a novel. We're not hearing, and then let me just say this. I need to say this very bad. I've got to shut up here because boy, am I there. So nobody's here to tell him to shut up. But I am. Yes, I am.
You got 12 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that means you have 12 minutes too. Yeah. So you know, Bergson said, when we identify, when we read about somebody else, we're there. Like there's one poem that I used that I started out with in here, and he starts right out in this poem. He's not talking about something else. He's talking about you. He's on purpose. It's not, you know, and so it's not hard for you to be there. And so, and the extent to which you notice that he's talking about you in this poem, which is any poem could be, then that extent, okay, you can be nourished by this. This can be helpful to you. And so, and I remembered what I was going to say there, and then I forgot after. Yeah.
I don't recall ever seeing anything where Dabrowski himself talked about this. But on my own studies of Bergson, certainly are interesting because it's a much more freer form of dialogue, as I understand it, from Bergson. So, you know, his is to release those boundaries. As he said, imagine the river with no banks of the and that's a kind of very interesting of letting go that I don't sense with Dabrowski so much.
It depends on how that's interpreted. Like Bergson was trying to point out that because of Greeks and whatever else, philosophical development up until now, it had to do with our Western science as it's conducted right now. It's all spatial, like time, duration. Your experience, personal duration, is not made up of living points. Bergson himself said, you know, and he's a mathematician, doctorate in mathematics. So this is language, you know, part excellence, in excruciating detail. This is picky, you know, positivistic, you know, get her done, you know, and so what I'm saying is, he comes to the problem of Western science and of positivism at his time with nothing. He knows the language of it and what the language is doing to experience better, as much as anybody. And that's what he brings here. And he says, like, and he talked about how he saw him say, well, in time T1 this happened, but in time T2 is that there were these points in time, like it's linear or something like that. No. And so a whole lot of what Bergson gets into that gets deep is he talks about the problem of looking at everything spatial, using spatial metaphors for everything, and here what is happening is time. Time doesn't point here and stuff like this. It's a whole other, it's a different deal. And so this different deal, this durée, which is interior, which is your experience, the élan vital as it's playing out in you, this is what he tried to describe, and this is where intuition comes in. When you're coming from this is more intuition. When you're coming from mind, it's material. Like I think Bill was saying, you know, like this kind of mind works for tools to ferret it out. And then in your thought, you think of, and then those tools, like ferreting it here, you're stuck in a pile of tools and you haven't got anything figured out yet. You do eventually find out that depends on your tool what you find out. You know, this is quantum mechanics and so on. But I mean, you're still biting your own tail, kind of, you know, because you're looking at it from outside. And this is what I wanted to say about a cell here. We start out with this relation to whatever it is we are as a kind of concept, as a mental take. And that mental take has to be broken down. Like when we see self-concept, Freud would say ego. It's your concept of self. It's not what Rogers would say. Rogers is not so much, Rogers is talking about the comparison between your concept of self, what you think, and yourself. And so like, this is in Dabrowski. There's a difference between ego, rigid, primitive kind of notion, concept of yourself, and who you are as a full human being. And so what Sal was giving us here, that's right, that's what we're doing. And
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Well,
What if that client, in individual therapy, what if that client had not met Dabrowski?
And not met Dabrowski?
See, when I was 23 and met Dabrowski, I had never met anyone like me before. And I had this process going on. And when I talked to Dabrowski, I said, wait, that's a thunderstorm, that's lightning, that's rain, that's wind. And I thought, you know, that's the first time I've ever had that figured out. Then I met Marlene, then I met you, and I think that when you meet more and more and more people like that, and now I am myself, and I've got a whole long list of them now, but had I never met those people, I'd be pecking the ground like a turkey, you know?
You have to give out potential.
And does the meeting with those people have much to do with what is being done?
You know, I'm not sure too much, I don't know how much like group activity like that. He did say that people of similar, and as you grow further toward, people share value, share experience, have a similar take, perfect perception, whatever, of what's happening. And so that's there. And these are in exemplars, and he pointed to exemplars. This is something Bergson did. Bergson pointed to exemplars, human, excellent models of what it means to be fully human. And this is where we get Don Quixote, and we get Cervantes and Unamuno's characterization and this kind of heroic human examples. And he used Buddha, he used Jesus, he used Socrates and others to illustrate, you know, examples of full human development.
Yesterday, Dr. Laurie Nixon mentioned on his review of artists, and he assigned developmental levels to their artwork. And ever since I've been curious to hear from any of you, how was that label assigned to that particular masterpiece? Was it from the level of being a masterpiece, or the development level of the artist at the time the piece was built?
You know, the thing that comes to my mind in response to that are the faces, the tests that were used. Dabrowski picked different faces in different situations. Like there was a very serene face that was not with no sadness, but then a calm face but with sadness, for example. And then other faces, like there was the scream was one of the pictures, wasn't it? For Dabrowski's faces tapped, you know which one I mean, and so on. And so he's, it's not an easy thing to explain, and I think we brought it up, you know, like, well, he said that's what it is, and if you look at it, you can see that, you know. But there are more, just like we were saying, in icons, and in religious painting, which is characterizing, depicting emotional, spiritual experience. It's uplifting, and it's, for example. But
yeah,
other
and
things
we all
too.
know that Western art history evolved from those icons. So.
I know, but one of the things that I was thinking about in this regard is modernity, so to speak. And this occurred in Dabrowski's youth. And he was there. He was in Paris, among other places, where this whole transformation from the romantic and the classic to Picasso. And Picasso, later Picasso, we used Picasso. This is a Picasso thing that what do you call it, the poem that Michael translated about neurotics. This thing here, that's a Picasso, that's Don Quixote. But he had reasons to say that certain expressions, certain works of art, it's like music, you know. It's not just a matter of what style of music you like. Some music is more, I mean, you can look at it at the brain level. Some music cultures and moves the brain to develop, and other music scrambles. It does. I mean, that's what noise does. That's why to get still, or like even to use a mantra to get still, it's kind of music to be trained, to organize, to give order to that. That's all.
In the movie, Madrid, Second Audience, which is on YouTube nowadays, there's about 2 or 3 minutes where he analyzes a couple of pictures in the face with Marlene. And you can actually hear him talking about what these characteristics are. Right? So you know, Dex, I've understood you talk explicitly, and I believe it's genius. I'll summarize it. You said, you gotta shut something off and turn something on. That's about it.
He's pretty straightforward.
And that's the end of time.
So I think we've much video challenge.